So today is Introduction to Budgeting. And our presenter today is Francis Kamo. He is a professional coming from Zambia. He's a business and markets development specialist working at World Vision Zambia. Currently, his role is, like I said, is a business and markets development specialist under the Transforming Households Resilience, in short, Thrive project for World Vision Zambia. And he has served World Vision for 8+ years in various roles before this current one, mostly under livelihood projects. So he holds a bachelor's degree in agribusiness management. He coaches and mentors smallholder farmers and small to medium enterprises to ensure that they are transformed and have improved resilience and livelihood in various communities. So he's a community worker. He's passionate about bringing transformation to communities within Zambia. Above all, he is an entrepreneur and director at the company he formally registered in 2016 called Kamo Lukundo General Dealers. He also grows vegetables, maize, so he's a smallholder farmer as well. He grows vegetable, maize, beans, and minters and rears livestock. He's also married, and he's married to a lovely wife called Yvonne, and together they have a son and a daughter. So today we're going to hear from an expert with experiential. So we're going to have an experiential learning in that he's going to talk from experience, not just the theoretical. So this will help us even as we start our NGOs and businesses, because he's coming from an experiential background and not just a textbook kind of academic learning. So let's welcome Mr. Francis Kamo as he takes us through the session. Mr. Francis, over to you.
Thank you, Phoebe, for that great introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, team. I'm glad that today I have joined this team to just share one or two experiences on how we in the society to be able to generate some business ideas, grow them, and also expand on them, and also ensure that at the end of the day, we are financially stable and be able to execute different enterprise and also be able to run certain organizations or projects. I think you allow me to share my presentation, so that from there, due to time, I can begin to talk about the budget. Great. I'm sure, Phoebe, I'm sure everyone is able to see my screen.
Please indicate in the chats if you're able to see Mr. Francis's screen.
Okay, as Phoebe has introduced, me, I'm the technical specialist under the livelihood project. So we may understand, I think, that in business, especially for those that are starting, it is quite vital to understand the budget, and also because it will help you as you do the proposal to those people that are interested in ensuring that they help us with finance. It's quite important that we understand the budgeting aspect, and also in every institution, we understand that once you have this in place, you'll be able to execute your plans as intended. But then we also understand that for every budget to succeed, it is quite important that our mindset is actually that of transformed. We need to have a mindset that is transformed. If we just go straight and ensuring that we execute our budget, sometimes it becomes a challenge. So we need to really plan, settle down, and ensure that our minds are settled. And by doing so, you have to ensure that you transform your heart. And then once you transform your heart, you find that your mind is also transformed. And this will help you actually develop your desired budget that will eventually then, once well executed, it will be able to fill your pocket. In short, it will empower you financially. And that's why I thought it is quite important that once we are asked to understand that mindset change is critical in everything we do. We don't just need to do business as usual. Once we do business as usual, it's the chances of us failing is high. We then need to change our minds. And once we are done with mindset change, I think you'll be able to see, like this man who is on my far right, who has managed to actually break the chain based on the mindset change. And so we understand that in financial management, budget is quite key. And then I want to start with these key introductions by saying financial management, actually, we understand that it involves the management of finance function. It is concerned with the planning, organizing, directing, and controlling the financial activities of an enterprise or an organization. And then it also deals mainly with raising funds in the most economic and sustainable, suitable manner, using these funds as profitably as possible, planning future operations and controlling current performance and future developments through financial accounting, cost accounting, as well as budgeting, statistics, and other means. And today our focus is actually, we've picked the budgeting, which is quite key in this session. So it continues to also say it is concerned, continuously concerned with the achieving the adequate rates return on investment, as this is necessary for survival and also attracting new capital. And you may understand that return on investment is applicable even to non-profit making organizations. Others may ask you how. I understand some of us, I think, will be able to maybe have a chance to receive grants and everything, but I also understand that even in the non-profit making grants or enterprise, it is critical that some of the donors or the financials will be interested to know how much money have they realized with regard to the return on investment based on the finance aspect. I think even community grants or community projects, we are all interested to ensure that even if it's non-profit, whatever we give you, how much money on top of it has been actually realized, and also how long has it taken for us in order to realize that this money is paid back actually in some way. So that's why even in these non-profit making organizations, we have to make sure that we things are right so that we have the return on it back. That's financial management actually means the entire governmental state of managerial efforts devoted to management of finance, both its sources and also uses of the enterprise or the organization. So in simple terms, I think I want us to also reflect. I know we all understand what a budget is, but I think to simplify it further is just an itemized list of income sources and also expenditures or expenses for a given period of time based on estimations, meaning for those things, I think based on the things that will not actualize. It is important, it's the point of reference for your business or any organization. Once you run something without a budget, I think they are quite numerous in terms of errors and so forth. So when do the budget required? You may realize that some people actually tend to do the budget after they have received the finances, which becomes again a challenge. So the budget must be prepared way before the income is actually used or even earned. If you have a clear financial goal or plans, it is actually from this budget that you'll be able to plan what you intend to execute. However, you are at liberty to make adjustments or changes to the budgets along the way as you do the implementations due to many reasons. For example, if there could be exchange rate, it could be partnership, for example, in the area where you are operating, or somebody just comes on board to ensure that they want to share the costs. You can be able to amend or adjust the budget. And also there could be, you requested this particular amount in terms of finance, but at the point of receiving, you receive less or more. At that particular moment, I think you'll be able to amend or adjust the budget. And also it could be the mode of delivery. You have some savings, among other things that may bring about change in the budget. So you should be able to amend and change. So why is financial management or budgeting important? I think in every enterprise or budgeting, I think we all aware, but I think we understand that this will help you keep your eye on the goal and also ensure that you do things right. So it will help you have control on your income and also not income controlling you once you have a budget. And once you are the budget holder or budget owner, you'll be able to notice that control expenditure and expense will be within actually your income. Anticipate, prepare, and also cope with emergencies, as well as plan for insurance. It will also help you plan for savings, plan for investment, your retirement, and also social safety nets, among others. They need to also further help you as an organization to make informed decisions on how your future looks like, and also patterning the operations. And they need to also attract the financials. If you ask me as an investor or an entrepreneur, if you come to me to say, let's partner, depending on how you do your budget, it will actually attract me based on how your budget looks like. And it also help you to avoid misappropriating in terms of finances. There are some situations, especially if these NGOs, they'll ask you to say, okay, here's your budget. We have to make sure that whatever you spend should be within plus or minus 2 or 3%, or 5% or 10%, depending on their policy. And if you don't have a budget, sometimes you may realize that if you work outside the budget, you'll be able to spend something actually beyond what they have put as a policy. And that is also, it has on itself has also a lot of consequences, and it also helps you account well. So at this particular moment, I think I will switch to the Excel sheet presentation, where I'll be able to share with you some of, I think, my experiences, and also an example of one of the proposal that I think I did with regard to my projects for small livestock. I don't know, maybe so far up to this end, if there's any question, Phoebe.
I do not see any questions yet.
Okay, great. Let me just share the Excel. Let me know, Phoebe, if the team is able to see this screen.
Okay, I'm able to see it. Is everyone able to see it? To see Francis' screen? Yes.
Okay, cool. So what it is I have been running the livestock project based on the business plan that I did, but then also we have a lot of opportunities that are coming through in our country, and also I thought it is quite important that I can be able to put up a small proposal that I think once considered, I should be able to boost this particular enterprise. So where I am actually, before I ventured into the livestock, which is goat production, I did a market research, and also there are quite a lot of potential here in the province, in Zambia, and also beyond. They're quite demand in terms of livestock. I did that research, and then I realized that it is worth undertaking. But then I also realized that because of this particular potential, there is need for us to improve and also increase on production and also productivity. And to enhance this, I realized that if I have a project that will also help me reach out to the community by improving actually the breed, it will be able, I think you'll see a lot of community participants or other farmers coming on board, so that we can expand and increase production for this particular breed. And then we'll be able to meet the demand that we have. And then for me to realize, I think I came up with a project that I feel, I think once actualized, I'll be able to undertake this particular project. It is called Goat Person for Improved Breed. So it's when we say Goat Person, I think it's a situation where we buy and be able to maybe give about 10 farmers or households. And after a certain period of time, they should be able to pass on to the other, maybe another 20 within the community. And then the process continues. So within a period of 1 year, 2 years, we'll be able to see a lot of increase in this particular venture. So I will run through the team on how I developed this particular grant. the target for this one is actually to make sure that as I start with about 100 parent stock in terms of goats, which is improved. And then I'll run you through on how I expected these funds to be generated. So if you check on my far end here where there is a CASA, we understand the AOK grant is actually, AOK is the name of my goat enterprise. It's actually Lukundo Kamo grant, which is requested. So the amount being requested is actually about $4,325, which is, I think, in my local currency, which is Zambian currency, is 70,000. So I also, now in terms of even how it will be generated, so I have my personal contribution to this particular project is around 4,000 kwacha. Then I also have community contribution from what we call the Tribe Saving Group. They are also interested in ensuring that they do the social corporate responsibility to this particular project. And this is our intent and also expect to receive this fund. Because the people that are going to finance me, they're also interested in knowing how passionate I am and also how other contributions will come through to this particular project. So I also expect, I think there are some people that have seen in this particular area where I'm doing this particular project, they're interested in also ensuring that they partner with me, and also they're interested because they also have these breeds, which are in short supply. So they also from the district livestock office, they have promised to give me some amount of money. I think you're able to see on the screen, it's about 2,220. Then there's also the livestock cooperative farmers. They're also interested in putting in something because they are also interested that once I do scale up in terms of the improved breed, they'll also be able to benefit in the community, and then will be able to feed demand within the country as well as nearby countries like DRC. They are also in need of these particular goats, as well as Saudi Arabia. And then we also have some kind in-kind donations. I think there's PJT farms within the locality who actually decided to say, okay, we'll be able to support 2 more goats, which is improved. They are doing some improved goats. So they also promised to give us 2 of them, costing 6,000. And then also we have a deep tank from the district livestock office for us to treat our animals well, which has been actually promised to be donated. Then we also have another in-kind donation, or to some extent others call it gift in kind, donation from iron sheets from goat house construction, from the district livestock fishery and fisheries. So they are also interested to give us some iron sheets because they want us, our project actually to one of the greatest in the particular area. Then we also have other business, other well-wishers from the business community, which is, I think when we total, it's coming to about 20,000. And the total expected, I think, to be raised is around 110,000, which is about $6,676. And how we intend to actually spend these the 110,000 kwacha is itemized as follows. I think you've seen here the expenses, how it will be done. And this is where actually also the financials will be interested to know how their monies will be invested and also be spent. So the 100 parent stock for the improved goats, we expect to spend about 60,000 kwacha, which is about $3,750. And then transportation of these from where we'll source them to the quarantine center will spend about this much. We also need feed stock while these goats are at the quarantine center for 14 days before we give them to the beneficiaries in the community. We also need to spend on the vaccines. We also need to spend on labor for 2 veterinary officers that will take care in terms of ensuring that the animals are in good health. Then also before we give them, we also need to train the beneficiaries in goat management so that they know how these things are supposed to be kept. And also when doing the goat management, to also be able to handle the mindset change aspect, because it is quite key. We've seen projects coming in the communities, but because they understand this is a grant and also they didn't spend much as expected, others may not take it as serious as possible. So we need to deal with the mindset change actually before we give these livestock for expansion purposes. We also need to spend on sessionally. Then monitoring and support fees quite critical, because once you give them, you also need to support them technically so that they be able to implement and take and manage the project well. Then you also need to do some market research with the community so that they are interested, I think, and also encouraged. We plan to do a learning visit to the nearby country, which is DRC, where we are exporting quite a number of goats and other livestock. And also we will spend some on advertising, because as I think in the towards end of the year, we'll see a lot of multiplication for these particular breeds. And at the end of it, I think we'll be able to start now the bulking, which I'm more interested. And once we do the bulking, it means we'll be able to penetrate even the bigger markets. Because by doing so, we are actually going to reduce the cost of doing these particular businesses. And then you also need to take them through the financial education and also record keeping for the beneficiaries. And then I think it should be after tomorrow when we'll be looking at the record keeping and how critical it is in these particular businesses. And then alongside this, we'll make sure that as a project, I and the other team members will need to focus much on mentorship and coaching for the beneficiaries for the period of 6 months, because this is very critical to ensure that they do the correct thing. So we need to do one-on-one in terms of ensuring that this program is done and implemented, and then also spend some on communications, security fees. We intend to recruit 2 security guards on the project, and also bank charges, cost sharing for goat house, I think. And the community will need to do some community contributions so that they take this project very serious. We don't just need to give everything for free. And then also we plan, I think, just in case of miscellaneous or the contingents at that match, which is coming to about this match, which we requested. So people need to be interested to know, okay, this person is requesting this much, how does he intend to spend? And this is how the project proposal, very simple, which I think if I'm able to submit to one of the attendees present, they need to make the decision. And then if I am to take you to the detailed, detailed business plan for this particular project where we are coming from, I think if you start it now by year 5, I should be giving you over $1 million kwacha plus, which is about, I think, yeah, if you have to convert that by $1 million kwacha, you divide by, I think, our current rate, which is about 16. It's quite a lot of money in terms of profit. Even me, I'll be able or interested to partner with you on this particular project. So I want to just take you to how the budget for this particular year looks like in terms of monthly revenue as well as expenditure. So for the sake of time, I think what I did here is actually I just did the revenue for this for the month of January. So if we are to look at how we intended to raise money for the month of January, in terms of spend money for the month of January, this is how it looks like. So I hope you're able to see. Procurement for 100 parent stock for 25 beneficiaries. This is the amount I mentioned from the other end, because now I need to execute once these funds are in place. So this is how we intend to spend in the month of January. So there is transportation, as you saw from where we are coming in the proposal, feedstock, vaccines, labor, among others. You are able to see here. So this is how much we intend to spend in the month of January. So all the months here has got actually the money has been distributed according to the way we plan to spend them for the period of 12 months from October 2023 to December 2023. So the expense actually for the month of January is about $5,074. And we also need to know where this money will come, because others promised to fund me or to fund our project, but they did not tell me to say this money will come in the month of January. So I need to know, okay, when do I expect this particular amount? Because you don't just put to say everyone will be able to support you or finance you in the same particular month, especially these things that are in kind donations. And the revenue is expected as below. So amongst those that we requested as a grant, of course, this we expected that the money will come, 7,000 will come as a lump sum in the month of January. And then personal contribution, definitely this has to come. I think you've also seen that community contributions from this project, which is Thrive, they promised to give us in the month of February and not January. That's why I've seen here it's quite bland. And the total here is around 5,576 that we expected to come through in the month of January. So if we look at the 5,776 less the 5,074, you'll be able to remain with something that you'll be able to be sure of about $5.3 US. And then you'll be able to say, okay, I think I'm good to go in the month of January. And apart from this budget that I've shown here, you also need to, once you start the execution of this particular budget, it is of great importance that you need to check, okay, this is how much I budgeted, how much have I spent. Sometimes you may end up spending things that you never even budgeted for, which becomes again quite a challenge as you do your implementations. So if you look at the month in terms of expenses, the money that we intended to spend are these, but when it comes to the actual kind of implementations, this is how we spend. I hope you are able to read these things. I may not repeat them for the sake of time, but if you look at the actuals, I would jump and just come here. For example, here in the month of January, we intended to spend about 480,000 kwacha, but we spent about 600, and it means we overspent by about 120 kwacha, which is about 25% overspent. And also there are certain things that we never even budgeted for. For example, the advertising, we forgot to budget for advertising in the month of January, but we based on the demand, we said we need to advertise, and we ended up overspending in the month of January. So our total amount budgeted in the month of January was about 5,074. We spent this much, and from the look of things, you'll be able to note that, okay, this is how I planned, this is how I spent. And I think, remember, in my preamble, I talked about budget amendments, budget adjustments. This is where now, if you heard of people saying reverse, so you need to pass a reverse and everything. So you need to say, okay, I didn't budget for this. I budgeted for this particular intervention, like advertising in the month of April, but I spent this money in the month of January. So when you get to April, you need to take note of the transaction. In terms of revenue, also, you realize that this is how we intended to actually earn money in the month of January. So the budget versus actually is quite critical. And this actually helps you to monitor how you are going to implement or run your grant. Once you don't monitor this, it becomes a challenge. Almost every week, you should be able to relate to say, okay, this is how much I budgeted to spend and how am I spending. And then after that, I think you also need to get to the what we call the general journal, or in other areas they call it the D6, which will actually just show you how you are spending the money, and also in terms of categories. So it will show you, okay, for example, in the month of January, I think, I'm sure are they able to see this particular Excel sheet? Okay,
yes,
cool.
they are
so
able to.
When you look at the month of January, you should be able to now put these things in the journal or the ledger transaction that will show you to say, okay, in terms of expense in the month of January, these were the expenses. And also the class, for example, and admin. There are certain things, for example, even yourselves, I think as you do the grants, they are what we call the 80-20 in terms of admin. Others will say, okay, 20% will go to admin, and then the 80% will go to operations or actual implementations. So you realize that at some point you budgeted for admin, you budgeted for 20%. At the end of the day, you find that you spent actually 30% or 40% towards admin. It means you actually, in terms of profits, you are even affecting your implementations, because much of the money maybe has gone towards fixed costs like salaries or electricity, instead of going to the purchasing of actually the actual goods. So that's why you're able to itemize here in terms of class and also the category. For example, under admin, you should be able to say, I will spend some under bank, security, communications, for example, monitoring, and also capacity building. These are expenses under admin. And also ministry, it could be these, could be inputs, for example, the same actual goods. These will fall under the ministry. Also capacity building will also be falling under the ministry. Then when it comes to the capital investment itself, you also need to itemize these things according to the category. And then at the end of, I think here, I think the last three, I've talked of the revenue. You should be able to say, okay, the revenue is actually one of the classes, actually the grant. And then in terms of category, this is actually the empowerment program. And where do we intend to get this money is actually from our end. I think we have a commission, which we call CEC, Citizen and Economic Empowerment Commission Fund, which is about 60,000, the one I think you saw where we are coming from. And then the GIK is actually the gift in kind or in-kind donations, which we expect to get this much. And then we also expect to get some more revenue from the community service, from our business community that are into the corporate social responsibility. And then there's also one thing that I should be mentioned to say, there are some things that sometimes we don't take, we don't consider as costs. For example, if me, I give Phoebe some monies in form of donations, that I should actually indicate it as a cost. Phoebe, who is actually receiving, should be able to say, okay, even if she receives some goods from my end, she will indicate as a revenue. But for me, who is actually spending that as part of my social corporate responsibility, even if I'm giving her an equipment towards the project, I should be able to indicate that as a cost. And also, I mentioned in my area presentation that it could be a non-profit making organizations, but people should be interested to know how much money is coming out of that particular interventions. And if, for example, me, I intend to tell the communities, if you are 10 of you, I give you a grant that is worth 100,000 US dollars. I should be able to divide that amongst you if you are 10. And each person will be able to account for that particular amount to say, okay, how much do I expect each particular person to make for this particular period of time? Once they realize that, then I should be able to know that, okay, my money is actually coming back, because if I gave them as a loan, actually they should have been able to pay back. Then from there, you should be able to also indicate in terms of what we call the chart of accounts, so that you just itemize them according to the revenue and also expenses. It is quite important that you separate these two things, so that you should be able to know that these are the expenses, these activities are for expenses, these transactions are for the revenue, so that you can actually, at some point, even if I'm not there, even if you are not there, we'll be able to say, okay, this is how we intend to itemize these particular expenses. And the last table here is actually just the pivotal table. We should be able to, I think, be able to tell you. For example, remember I mentioned to say, if you are talking of the 80-20, we give you money, we should be able to know, okay, this is how much is going towards these particular expenses, or admin. It could be the capital, how much is expected to go towards capital. So it will actually just summarize how you intend, or how you intend to do these particular activities, or how you have actually implemented these particular activities. For example, when you look at the expenses for the month of January, I use January as an example. If you look at expenses, total expenses under admin, actually it is coming to about this much, which is about 78,479. So here, when you do the pivotal table, it's a simple process that you can also, I think, I'm sure all of you knows how to do it. and admin, we have bank charges, we have capacity building, communications, monitoring, office supplies, and also security. When you total these amounts, you should be able to get this much. And then also under capital investment, the 72,500. So under equipment, under inputs, which are the goods themselves, the improved rate, you need to spend this much. Under ministry, I think you've seen here, we have the marketing, also we have inputs, which could be vaccines, and also maybe capacity building. I mentioned of the mentorship and coaching there. It should be able to summarize the expense up to this much. Then the revenue also needs to know, okay, this is how it will come. Like for example, community community service. Sorry, it should be community service. It should be able to raise this much. Community corporate social responsibility, I expect to receive this much. Donations, so much, and also gift in kind, or rather donations, in-kind donations, so much, and also the grant will be like this much. The total for this particular grant will be this much. So instead of someone going to read through and through, they will be able to just open this particular pivotal and be able to know, okay, total revenue will be so much, total expense will be so much, and then profit or loss. They should be able to say, okay, this particular person or this particular grant will have a plus of or a saving or a profit of 741, which is quite key. And I think I'll also, if there are no questions so far, I don't know if there are questions, Phoebe, I can be able to revert back to the PowerPoint presentations as I do the last 5 minutes to do the conclusions, and then I can be able to welcome questions from that end, I think. Any questions up to this far, Phoebe?
Yes, there's one question in the Q&A. It says, thank you so much, Mr. Francis, for your explicit presentation. Considering that a budget can either be surplus, balanced, or even deficit in nature, which form of a budget is appropriate to prepare by a startup business?
Okay, which form of a budget is able to,
Okay, so let me read that again. So this is coming from Fode Bangura.
Okay.
It's saying, thank you so much, Mr. Francis, for your explicit presentation. Considering a budget can either be a surplus, balanced, or even deficit in nature, which form of a budget is appropriate to prepare for a startup business?
In that regard, I think in terms of form of a budget to start with, I think budgets are quite diverse. But if you, for example, you are focusing on an enterprise, or it could be an NGO, it could be any form of business. Once you are doing the business, I think in terms of form of business, or I don't know if the form of business actually would depend on the type. Form of budget will actually depend on the type of a business or enterprise that you want to venture into. So what is quite important, what is critical there is actually when you do the budget, depending on the enterprise that you are looking at, and also that is also based on the business that you have generated. I think in entrepreneurship or in business, I think there are quite about 2 to 3 steps. One is looks at the type of business idea that you are generating. Once you generate the business idea, there are certain processes that I think you'll be able to use in order for you to arrive at a business idea. And once you choose one idea, you do the budget. Actually, that is where you need to be following the budget to the latter. It is quite important that you also give your target in terms of, I think he has mentioned to say sometimes it can be the budget can be a surplus, or sometimes it can balance, or maybe sometimes it go into deficiencies. So what is critical is you need to give your target once you come up with an enterprise, which will actually help you to determine what form of a budget you are going to develop. It is quite important that you have tools that will help you track the budget, so that you evaluate yourself as to whether you are implementing or working within the plus or minus a certain percentage that will give you. But I think I understand that in most enterprise, we don't allow most of the people that are doing this particular enterprise to go beyond the plus or minus 10%. But because once you begin to do plus or minus, I mean, once you begin to do a plus 10%, it becomes a challenge even for the people that are helping you, even yourselves. I think you may end up putting yourself into financial challenges. I don't know if I've really answered the question correctly, but I think based on the information that we'll be able to share with the team, we can continue chatting with the person that have actually requested that particular question. Sure.
Okay. So there's a question from Akim Longwe. He says, oh, sorry, do you need to go through another presentation before we do the Q&A?
Sorry, no, you can go ahead. I mean, as I do the conclusion, I just reverted back to the same PowerPoint presentation.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Akim is asking, can we try to go back to the budget versus actual sheet? Can you explain a bit more on variance and the other column?
Oh, okay, cool. Are you able to see this?
Yes, please, it's visible.
Oh, okay. Actually, when you look at I think when you look at the expense, these are the expenses for this particular month, which is January. For example, I mentioned of procurement of 100 parent stock for 25 beneficiaries. So with these 100 goats, the improved breed, once procured, will be distributed to the 25 beneficiaries or households at this particular amount. And then we budgeted for, these are the transactions for this particular month. As indicated, the total is coming to about $574. Then when it comes to actual implementations, because I knew that, okay, I will receive these monies from this particular, if I knew that, okay, this is how much I'm going to receive, and also intend to spend. This is once executed. When you look at, once executed, when you look at the actuals, the expenses will look like, for example, 6,000. In terms of variance here, I may not have any variance. I think you've seen the variance amount column, and then this same variance amount column, there's also a percentage. In every organization, I think I must mention before, maybe I explain more, you'll find that almost it could be every after 2 weeks or every after 1 month, you should be able to tell us to say, okay, for example, this is how much money I expected to spend in the month of January. And I think you've seen, this is how much I expected to spend in the month of January, but I spent this much. I overspent, or I spent within the budget. So if you overspent, you should be able to know by what much. So if you overspent or underspent, you should be able to put that amount in percentage or in monetary form itself. So we are just changing. I mean, you've seen the column for the amount here. It is 100% because 100% variance because you budgeted to spend, for example, so much 60,000, you spend 60,000. The variance amount here is actually 0, and that's why it is actually 100% here. But when you look at this one, you budgeted to spend 2,780, you spent 2,000. There is a balance of 780,000 or whatever currency, depending on your currency, which is 72%. So there is a variance of about, if you say 100 minus 72%, there should be about 28% remaining to be spent. That's the amount you've seen here for this particular month. I didn't go into January and February. So here, for example, where I highlighted the orange, I expected to spend about 480 kwacha. I spent 600, which is more. So when you look at the percentage, I mean, the amount here, I overspent by 120 kwacha. When it comes to percentage, I spent 125%. So minus the 125 minus 100 it means for this particular event, which is stock, feed stock, while at the quarantine center for 14 days, I overspent by 25%. And as the goal owner or the budget owner, I should be able to sit down and say, why did I spend? I overspent by 25%. If I take note of what caused me or made me to overspend, then I should be able to adjust and also plan well. Sure. And I don't know if maybe I also need to get to the revenue, but it's actually just the same as I have explained above. So we find that we expected in the month of January, we expected this much. This is how much we actually received, and this is how much we spent. So when you look at here, it is actually 0. This is 100%. Where there is 100% variance, it means we spent according to the way we budgeted. If there is less than 100%, it means we underspent. It means we have some more savings. If we have a figure which is above 100%, it means you overspent according to you overspent on that particular activity compared to what you actually budgeted for. I don't know if I have explained well there, and you allow me to move to the next slide.
Yes, Akim says it's understood. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay, I don't know if Phoebe, is the team able to see this slide? The conclusion.
Yes, it's visible.
Great. So I wanted to mention that all in all, I think a budget is not a one-man show. In every enterprise, I think I understand that even if you receive the grants, you need a team to execute the budget together or implement your proposal once actualized with the other team. And so it is quite important that you sit down with your team. It being in a limited company, an enterprise, or an organization, you need to sit down and plan with your team together, because actually they'll be able to tell if you don't budget with the team, they'll be able to tell to say actually you forgot to put this particular activity, which is very, very cardinal in the implementation. And these are things that actually to some extent be able to cause some plus or minus in the executions, and sometimes it becomes actually difficult for you to explain the variances. And actually, if there are certain times, I think I remember in my early days of the business or in an organization, if there is a particular activity I never liked in the earliest time, it's actually time to explain the variances. It is actually something that will help you be able to evaluate even yourself to know whether you are spending within or outside the budget. So minus a budget actually component in every business organization. Don't actually even commence the implementation, because there are some people that will say, okay, let me start. You start at the end of the day, you work or you do things outside the budget, it becomes a challenge. And so if you begin to implement without the budget, just know that you are destined for failure. And financial management actually borders on how you execute your budget against the deliverables. And then also, it is quite important, I think I mentioned earlier, to say budget review on monthly, it could be weekly or daily or annually, is very, very, very critical or very vital if you are to aim and score on target. It is quite important that actually in every business or organization, you need to sit down and be able to review these monthly budget, so that you will look at those things of surplus or deficit in the executions of these particular activities. And then I also want to I don't know if you are able to see this particular, okay, Jesus Christ. I think there's something that has been hidden. I don't know if you've seen the upper part, but I wanted to mention that sometimes if you begin, for example, if you are in a team and somebody just comes to say, okay, there's these particular activities, let's do them, even if even when you never budgeted for them. I can assure you will be able to work like this particular illustration of a track that will actually be able to go to any community, because there are some activities that you just see, okay, on fuel, for example, I budgeted for $100. And if when immediately begin to implement, you find that actually fuel itself, if you just begin to work without following the budget, you'll be able to spend maybe even 300, 400, 500 US dollars on the budget. So it is quite important that I think you've seen here, I've put to say before you make this particular move, like the truck is able to move 100 kilometers, you should be able to sit down and say, how much money did I budget on the fuel? Is it worth taking this particular trip to execute this particular business? Because if you never budgeted for it, you find that all the monies that you actually put in the proposal will just get finished before you even begin to implement the activity. So it's quite important that before you make this particular move, it is for every business, it is important to check the amount of money you budgeted for fuel towards this particular activity. And budgeted transactions may cost your business actually negatively and going forward, because some people may actually, even the people that are giving grants, for sometimes they may not even actually, based on the proposal, they'll give you to say, okay, we are going to fund you 40 or 50%. And at the end of it, you are supposed to do the reports so that they see how you are going to execute that amount of money. And if you actually begin be able to show that you don't have the capacity to execute, just know that it will also affect the other funding requests that are actually remaining or in pipeline to be given. So it is quite important that we follow the budget and to the latter, especially that we are the budget owner. There are quite about two roles, implementations or implementations versus finance. So most of the finance people will actually be able to give you the actual cost when you have actually transacted. While you, the budget owner, you know the actual actually amount spent even before it goes to finance. So you should be actually dealing with the live data when it comes to budget executions before it actually even goes to the finance department in your business organizations. Yeah, I think I will allow Phoebe to give me some more questions if they are there for this particular minutes that I'm remaining. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for the presentation, Francis. So I've got some questions in the chat and also in the Q&A section. The first one is coming from Alira William. It's saying, is there any specific software used for budgeting?
Okay, there isn't. I think maybe I wouldn't talk of, I'm not an IT specialist, but in terms of budgeting, there are quite a number of templates that you can use, but it is important that you use the simplest template possible, which is an Excel sheet, which is easy for you to understand and follow. Because once you get to, there are quite a number of templates. Once you get the template that is quite difficult for you to understand, it becomes complicated for you to follow, especially when it comes to tracking. It is important for tracking. It's very easy. I think as you saw when we are showing those, they are quite also basic. And so for now, or in all, I would encourage you to use the simplest, which is Excel sheet, which you should actually be able to understand, as long as everyone, including yourselves and your team, is able to know and follow through the transactions. And it is also important that as you do those reviews, you should be able to, you should ensure that the team that you are working with understand the type of a template that you have used. They are quite numerous. Almost every department, almost every organization, every enterprise may have their unique kind of a budgeting template, but it all leads to the same numbers. It all leads to us understanding how much money is there, how much money is spending. That's the basic principle for you to know the transactions and be able to track the amounts being charged to that particular budget.
Okay, so I will ask two questions which are similar. So it's saying, this one is from Nyagavona, sorry. Variance amount, what does it mean and why do you have negative? And then the other one is coming from Loveta. Can the variance be used for the first time budgeting or after implementing?
Okay, great. The variance, sometimes I think I earlier indicated to say if it is a negative, it means you overspent. If you said, okay, for example, on the salaries, I'm going to spend $100. Once that is when it comes to budgeting, but when you begin to execute, you spend $120,000 on salaries, it means you've overspent on salaries, you've overspent by $20. So just know that that particular activity or that particular transaction will go into a negative because of you've overspent. And that's why the budget reviews, I say they are quite key, because you should be able to know, okay, for example, if on salaries I've overspent by $20, then you should be able to know that, okay, on fuel, for example, or on feed, I should be able to save the $20 so that you balance it up. So if you go into negative, it means you overspent. You spent more than you intended to spend on that particular transaction. Then someone, I think the other one is talking about him. When do you notice or when do you go into the column for variances, right?
Yes.
So the variance, you should be able to know the variance, because the thing is, when you have the budget proposal, they fund you begin to implement, for example, according to the budget that you put there, you should be able to track. So immediately you implement the activity, you should be able to enter the amount that in that particular, the template actually has got the actual amount, the budget versus the actual. So immediately you enter the budget, you enter the actual, it should be able to give you the auto figure or the variance to say, on this one, we have actually scored on the target you spent according to the budget. So you will actually be able to show the figures as you do the activities, because you can't be able to know the variance. You can only know the variance, for example, if you requested a grant from me, $100, then I give you the 80, even before you begin to implement. From that aspect, then I should be able to say, okay, the $20,000 which is remaining is actually the variance. So that one you can also enter it as the variance, especially if you look at how much you requested or how much you expect as revenue and how much has come in as revenue. So if you expected $10, you receive 8. The 2 is actually the variance. So it depends on what activity or at what level you want to do the budgeted versus actual, or expected versus actual. The difference is what we should be able to call that as the variance. And you should have an explanation to that. That one is an emphasis in every activity that you do. So for every variance, actually, others say if it is positive, especially positive, normally they will not ask you to explain much, but immediately you go into a negative, you should be able to put up a reason as to why you have gone into a negative variance. So you should have an explanation to every variance that you come up with.
Okay, thank you for that. So they also asked, I'm actually curious to know whether a budget can be prepared as a surplus budget for expenses that might arise after a budget has been prepared, because factors such as changes in prices of expenditures might change in a budget.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Let me ask another one so that you can answer too. In case of starting an organization from scratch, which type of budget can we start with? From Patrick.
Okay. Okay. I think in terms of also immediately begin to think of a surplus budget before you even begin to execute. It is important. I think if you saw from the budget that the budget proposal that I shared initially for this particular enterprise, or improve the breed for the person project, I'd put something like a contingency. So that contingency is actually that will help you to do certain things. For example, if you overspend or you underspend, it will help you to actually meet some of those differences. I think you saw something to do with contingency. Also, that is amount set to just actually meet certain things that will come along the way. I think depending on the dollars, exchange rates, and could be your currency appreciating or depreciating. So to some extent, that contingency amount that I've put there should be able to help you execute. And that amount shouldn't actually go beyond the 10% as an emphasis, because once you begin to go beyond the 10%, then it means, especially if you move to the next financial year, you should be able to sit down and say, I think we did under budgeted or over budgeted. What are some of the adjustments that we have to make to make. Then there's also one who is asking about if, for example, you are starting the is it the NGO?
Yes.
The NGO from the scratch, what type of a budget are you supposed to come up? So that is the program budget, so to say. It's a program budget that should be able to indicate in the first place, actually, the NGO is in the head, which is an idea. So that idea should be able to have activities attached to that. So you should be able to know, okay, if I start the NGO from the scratch, how much do I need in order for me to implement this particular activity? For example, under administration, how much money do I need? You need certain things, for example, buildings, salaries, fuels, stationery, equipment, and so forth. You really need to come up with that program budget, and also be able to know, okay, once we have this, what are some of the activities that we'll be able to do once we start this particular NGO. And you should be able to put up a cost, and at the end of the day, should be able to know how much amount of money is needed, and that's what we will actually take to the people that are interested in funding you, or the donors. They will fund you, or they will give you donations based on what you actually take to them. So it is up to you. It's not actually the donor that will help you come up with that particular budget. It's you who understand the nature or the environment where you will be able to do that particular activities, or where you are going to implement or start the NGO. So you will need to start with the program budget that will become out of the activities that you intend to. Because I understand an NGO will be based on the need. It won't just start. It will be based on the need that it will come to meet. And that particular need is what you need to put on the table to say this particular need can only be met if we have this particular amount of money being spent on it. Certain things, for example, it just looks at, sometimes it may not be the money, it may be strong partnerships. So you may just take the idea to some other partners who will be able to actually help you meet that particular needs for the particular NGO that you actually need to start. And as you start, please don't start big, start small. And when you start small, it will actually give you room to perfect things, to perfect the transactions, to monitor the budgets and execute the budget as planned. And then from there, as you grow, you'll be able to see, and also you'll find that the gaps in the budget executions will be minimal. Sure. Thank you, Phoebe and team.
All right, thank you. We've run over by 4 minutes. One last question, which you can also conclude with, because it's talking about, I guess it also concludes the whole presentation. As a startup business, is it wiser to source your budget plan from experts or professionals, or you definitely have to plan a budget on your own? This is from Larry.
Great. Okay. Actually, it's quite critical. I think I mentioned in the preamble that when you look at the things that we have put there in this particular grant, there's something I think I've budgeted for mentorship and coaching. What is key actually is in business, and in every business, you are not, I think I said it's not a one-man show. I think if you check here in the conclusion, I said the budget is not a one-man show in every organization or in every enterprise. The thing is, you may want to run a certain enterprise, but you may not be an expert in every detail, in every activity, and so you need someone to speak into it. So it is quite important that as you do the budget, you can start it on yourself, and then after that you take it to someone or others who are experts in the same enterprise, to help review or evaluate your budget. They will be able to actually give you the information that will be very key in that particular enterprise. Because once you do it alone, it will be very difficult for you to make adjustments along the way. For example, if you just say, okay, for the vaccines, for example, if I talk of the GOAT or the GOAT enterprise, if I say vaccines, I have put the budget of 10,000 quarter. And then I go to a veterinary person tells me to say, actually here you are under budgeted, we needed triple or you needed to put 30, which is 3 times more than this. So it is quite important that as you do the budget, you get in touch with the people that are expert in that particular enterprise to help you, so that you actually minimize the losses and also the chances of you failing. So in short, or in simple terms, I'm saying the budget, if you have resources, actually for some of us when we are starting, we used to spend a lot of money just to come up with a business plan. And also to come up with something that is very marketable, or the business proposal that is very marketable. We are willing to spend to just ensure that we come up with the right document. And I believe equally you, that's why you are doing this particular academy, so that you meet different people with different expertise, different experiences, so that they help you actually come up with something that is very marketable. And I also need to mention that actually that same particular budget, that same idea is what is actually finance itself, because it is, you'll be finance based on actually the document that we have put up. So it is quite important that you do a very good actually business proposal or the budget itself. Equally, me, if I'm sitting on the grant or a budget proposal, a proposal that we've requested as an evaluate, actually they're quite key things that I need to look at. And also how it will actually benefit yourself as well as the community as a whole. Some people, yes, I might be just broke and decided to get money. Who knows? I'll put up a document, but then the people that are evaluating, or that's why it's quite important that the way you put up your document, it should be something that is very sustainable and very real, actually, as you execute it. So it's quite important that to understand that the budget, or it's not a one-man show. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Francis, and thank you everyone who's been who stayed till the end. This is just part 1 of the 2-part session. The next session will be on Thursday, same time. So I'd like to just thank you, Francis, for your time, for your preparation, for the extensive preparation that you put into in this session, and for answering all questions. I know some people will still have questions. Please come with your questions in the next session if your questions have not been answered in this session. We've gone over by almost 10 minutes, so we would want to let you go now, to let everyone go, as this session is only for 1 hour. But I would like to appreciate you, Francis, for the session, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you so very much, Tim, for giving me this opportunity to just share 1 or 2 things with you. Have a lovely evening, lovely day, lovely morning. Thank you.
All right, thank you.